There once lived a rich and kind merchant who had 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls. The merchant's wife had died many years earlier, so the children were his greatest joy in life. He spared no expense in their education or in providing them with the finer things in life. All his daughters were very pretty, but everyone admired the youngest most. When she was a child, everyone simply called her Beauty. This led to a great deal of envy among her sisters. Not only was Beauty prettier than her sisters, but she was kinder and better natured. Her elder sisters were arrogant because the family was so rich. They chose only wealthy people for their friends and made fun of their youngest sister, who spent most of her time reading books. One day, the merchant was told that a terrible storm had destroyed all of his ships, their valuable cargo lost forever. The merchant gathered his children to share the terrible news. "Do not fear," he said bravely. "We shall move to our little house in the country and enjoy a simple life, working the land for all we need. It will be difficult, but the important thing is that we are all together and safe." Tears clung to the corner of his eyes, and he could speak no more. The merchant's sons bowed their heads respectfully at their father's wisdom and love, but his 2 older daughters felt differently. "What is the point of living," they wailed, "if we are poor?" They paced the room, stamping their feet and ranting in frustration. The youngest daughter, Beauty, tried to comfort the old man. "Yes, father," she agreed. "We shall all stay together and start a new life in the country. How wonderful it will be to spend more time out of doors in the fresh air each day." Beauty's sisters seethed, their faces red with anger. "You stupid girl," they cried. "We will never have fine clothes again or servants to tend to our needs. No man will ever marry us, and you will have no time for your silly books." But Beauty paid them no mind and hoped for the best for their new life. When they arrived at the country house, the merchant and his 3 sons began farming the land. Beauty rose very early each morning to feed the animals, clean the house, and prepare the meals for the entire family. But at the end of the day, she always found time to spend reading before drifting off into a sound sleep. Her sisters, however, could not forget all that had been lost. They barely helped with any of the chores and complained endlessly. When they saw how Beauty had adjusted to the family's new life, they mocked and teased her. "Of course she fits in so well here. She'd rather spend time with books and animals than with high society." A year later, the merchant received a letter informing him that one of his ships had survived the storm and made it to port safely, along with the precious cargo. The 2 elder sisters could barely contain their excitement at the thought of leaving the wretched countryside. As their father prepared to return to the city to see this ship, they begged him to bring back gifts. "We need the finest dresses, the most delicate shoes, and noble stallions pulling an elegant carriage. Our return to the city must be a banquet for the eyes of all to behold. We shall be rich once again." The merchant turned to Beauty with a loving smile. "And what shall I buy for you, my child?" Since Beauty had truly come to cherish living in the country quietly with her family and did not miss the city lifestyle, she felt she had no need for such extravagances, and she would miss her father dearly when he left on his trip. But she thought it best to ask for something because she knew it would please him to bring her something. "Please bring me a rose," she said. "Since they do not grow here, we have only cabbages in the garden, which, though they may look a bit like roses, are not as lovely." "Then I shall bring you the finest rose in all the land," her father said, "for today our lives are changed forever." After a long journey, the merchant finally arrived in the city. But his ship was so badly damaged it was barely afloat, and what cargo remained had already been sold to pay for the losses of the other ships that had sunk. Utterly defeated, the old man mounted his horse and began to trip home, even poorer than when he'd started out. As he passed through a thick forest, the sky turned black, and it began to rain. Soon the rain turned to snow, and the merchant became lost in a raging blizzard. His despair deepened as he realized he would perish without ever seeing his beloved children again. Then, when the merchant thought all was lost, he saw a distant light and prodded his horse toward it. The snow gradually began to fade away, and the merchant found himself approaching a lush, green garden with an enormous castle, windows ablaze with candles behind it. The great doors of the castle opened slowly as the old man dismounted his horse and went inside. "Hello," he called, and his voice echoed down the massive hallways. He wandered from room to room in search of any signs of life, but not a soul could be found, nor a single voice heard. Finally, he came upon a great hall with a blazing fire in the hearth and a table set with a delicious meal. Ravenous, the merchant devoured the food and soon fell asleep in a chair. When morning came, the old man discovered a set of fine, dry clothing placed before him on the now cleared table. What a wonderful and mysterious host the master of this castle is, he thought. Outside, the merchant found his horse well fed and saddled up for the journey home. As he rode through the gardens, a lovely bed of roses came into view. "Well, at least I can return home with one gift," he said, plucking a single rose for his beloved beauty. Suddenly, an angry roar shattered the stillness of the garden, and a terrible beast burst from the bushes. The beast was so horrible to look upon that the old man almost fainted. He fell from his horse and cowered on his knees. "I give you shelter and food, and this is how you repay me?" the beast thundered. "You steal my roses, which I love more than anything else in the world. You shall pay for this ingratitude with your life." The shaking merchant pleaded with clasped hands. "Pardon me, my lord. I did not mean to offend you. I took it only as a gift for my daughter Beauty." Then he told the beast his family's sad story. The beast paused and reconsidered the punishment. "I will spare your life on one condition. You must send one of your daughters to die in your place, and if they refuse to die for you, swear you will return to accept your punishment." "I would never sacrifice one of my daughters," the weeping merchant said. But he did want to see his children again, so he agreed to the beast's bargain, even though he secretly had no intention of sending one of his daughters to die in his place. "If you don't return in 3 days," the beast warned, "I will come and find you." Then his voice softened. "In case you come back to me to die, I don't want your children to be poor orphans. Go to the hall where you slept and take the chest of treasures you find there." When the merchant arrived home, the two eldest sisters rushed forward, greedy for all the presents and treasure surely to be found inside the elaborate chest. Beauty hugged her father, who gave her the single rose. Then he related the terrible tale of the encounter with the beast to his children. When the two elder daughters heard the bargain their father had made, they turned to Beauty in a rage. "See what you have done," they wailed. "Why didn't you settle for the same gifts we asked for? Now you are going to be the cause of our father's death, and you aren't even crying." "I'm not crying," Beauty said quietly, "because there is no need for tears. Father will not die because I will go to the beast as promised." Beauty's brothers protested and offered to kill the beast themselves, but their father insisted the creature was too strong. He pleaded with Beauty to stay while he was sacrificed, but he could not change her mind. Beauty was convinced that her life would be spared. "I am sure no harm will come to me. Can this monster be so terrible if he offered father such kindness in time of need?" Beauty's father thought about this. Beauty was so certain that nothing ill would befall them that he believed her and agreed to let her accompany him on the journey. When Beauty departed with her father, the two sisters rubbed their eyes with onions to make themselves sweet, but her brothers truly wept, and so did the merchant. Their horse took the road to the castle, and by nightfall they spotted it as before. When the enormous doors opened, Beauty tried to be brave but felt horribly frightened instead. A loud roar echoed throughout the castle, and Beauty trembled at the sight of the huge monster slowly emerging from the shadows. "Good evening, my lord," she said, barely able to keep herself from shaking. "Good evening," replied the creature, "but do not call me lord, for the truth is I am an unspeakably ugly beast, and the truth is always to be spoken within these castle walls." The beast turned to her father. You may stay the night, but you must leave by morning, and never think of returning here." He turned back to the daughter. "Good night, Beauty." "Good night, beast," said Beauty. Beauty found the courage to look him in the eyes and was surprised to find a great sadness. Then, with his claws dragging on the floor, the beast was gone. The next morning, father and daughter shared a sad farewell. "My heart will break without you," the merchant cried, and he slowly rode away. "Don't worry, father," said Beauty, "for this beast is frightening, but he will do me no harm. I am safe here." After her father departed, Beauty sat weeping in the great hall for a long time. When her tears finally stopped, she bravely decided to make the best of things and went to explore the castle. She could not help but admire its beauty and was quite surprised when she found a door on which was written, "Beauty's Room." She stepped inside to discover lovely furniture and closets overflowing with fine garments. The most beautiful jewelry was laid out on the dresser, and one entire wall was covered with shelves lined with books. She thought it was most kind of the beast to prepare this for her, yet none of these luxuries could raise her spirits. "If only I knew that father was safe at home with the rest of my family," she said with a sigh. A mirror on the dresser began to shimmer, and when Beauty looked deep into it, she saw the merchant approach their little house with a sorrowful look upon his face. She saw her sisters run out to greet him, and it was clear they were glad that Beauty was not by his side. Then the mirror went dark. What a magical place, Beauty thought. At noon, she found the table set, yet she did not see a soul. So she ate by herself, although she had little appetite. That evening, the table was set again, and as she was about to sit down to dinner, she heard the sound of claws dragging across the floor. "Beauty," the terrible monster said to her, "may I join you?" "You're the master," replied Beauty, trembling. "No," said the beast. "You are the mistress here now, and you have only to say if I bother you. I'll leave if you wish." When Beauty said nothing, the beast sat down. "Tell me, do you find me very ugly?" he asked. "I do not know how to lie," whispered Beauty, "so yes, I do. But I also believe that you're very good." The beast's mouth curled slightly into what Beauty could only assume was a smile. "Enjoy your meal, Beauty," the monster said, "and try to be happy in the castle, for everything here is yours. I would be very upset if you were not happy." "Thank you," Beauty said. "I assure you that I am most pleased with your kindness. When I think of that, you no longer seem quite so ugly." Each evening, the beast would join Beauty for dinner. It was the only time she ever saw him. They made light conversation until one evening Beauty nearly dropped her fork when the beast asked, "Beauty, will you marry me?" She quickly recovered, but the beast had seen her reaction. "You are very kind," she said, "but no, I cannot marry you because I do not love you." "And because I am an ugly beast," he said angrily, and stormed away from the table. Beauty did want to upset the beast, but she no longer feared him quite as much. Eventually, Beauty became used to living in the castle and struck up a friendship with the beast. They began to take long walks in the lavish garden and talked of faraway lands that the beast had visited. He was a wonderful storyteller and soon had Beauty laughing when he acted out all the parts of an adventure as if it were a play. But then he would remember he was a beast and quickly bid her good night. This was the moment Beauty dreaded most because it always ended the same way. "Beauty," the beast asked quietly, stepping close, "will you marry me?" She saw herself reflected in his terrible eyes, knowing how much pain her answer would bring him. "No, beast, you must understand. I know you have been so very gracious and kind to me, but I can never be your wife because I do not love you." "Farewell then, Beauty." The beast would sigh and disappear until the next day, leaving Beauty to suffer alone with her cruelty. Beauty felt worse than she ever had before because she knew how much the beast suffered. She wished her father were there to console her. She ran to her room and picked up the magic mirror. "Please show me my father," she asked. The surface of the mirror shimmered and she could see the merchant, but something was terribly wrong. The old man lay on his bed, sick with remorse for having lost her. Life seemed to drain away from him before her very eyes. After dinner the next evening, when the beast asked Beauty to marry him, her answer was different. "Beast, I will always be your dear friend. Please try to be content with that." Then she told him what she had seen in the mirror. "I beg you to allow me to go to my father. If you do, I promise I will return and stay forever, of my own free will." Her eyes filled with tears and she bowed her head in anguish. "I cannot bear to see you in such pain," the monster said. "I will send you home, and then your poor beast will be left here to die all alone." "No," Beauty said, "I will come back to you, I promise." A mournful look came over the beast's face and he reached into his pocket and pulled out a gold ring. Beauty's heart leapt with fear as she immediately understood what the ring was for, since he asked the same question each day, but she was wrong. "Return before the moon is full, dear Beauty, or my heart will break. Place this ring on your finger, turn it 3 times, and wish yourself to be home. When you want to return here to the castle, do the same. Farewell, my Beauty." Beauty slid the ring on her finger, turned it 3 times, and thought of her father and home and the garden filled with cabbage. In an instant, she stood in the old house in the country. She immediately went to her father's side and saw that he was indeed very ill. He could hardly contain his joy when she appeared, and with her careful nursing, he slowly began to recover. A message was sent to Beauty's sisters in the city, and they came running back to the house with their husbands. Since the merchant had been lifted from poverty because of the beast's chest of riches, the daughters had been able to marry. But when the sisters saw Beauty more beautiful than daylight and dressed like a princess, they were speechless. They hugged her closely, but nothing could contain their envy, which only increased when she told them she was happy and content with the beast. "Why is the little wretch happier than we are?" they whispered to each other. "Are we not just as pleasing as she is?" "Sister," said the oldest, "I have an idea. Let's try to keep her here until after the full moon rises. Perhaps that stupid beast will become so enraged when he finds out she's broken her word, he'll devour her." The weeks passed quickly, with the sisters arranging one party or social event after another, all in an effort to get Beauty to stay longer. She went for long walks with the highest members of society. Young men asked for her hand in marriage, but she instinctively refused them all. Her sisters could not understand. What was wrong with her? Did she not want to get married? Beauty wondered herself. One evening, she was leaving a party when the carriage she rode in broke a wheel. The horses continued to pull, so the broken wheel scraped along the road like a claw dragging across the floor. A claw dragging across the floor. Beauty looked out the window and up at the night sky. A full moon glared down at her, a luminous reminder of her forgetfulness. What had she done? She turned the ring on her finger 3 times and thought of the castle all aglow, the beautiful garden, and most of all, the beast. Her beast. In a flash, Beauty was back in her room in the castle. She ran through the corridor shouting for the beast, but he was nowhere to be found. After hours of searching, she became so tired that she returned to her room and fell into a fitful sleep. The next morning, Beauty put on her most magnificent dress and spent a long, lonely day waiting for evening to arrive. But as the sun set, no meal appeared in the great hall, and the beast did not come. Distraught, Beauty ran through the castle, sobbing loudly. Where was he? She ran to the massive front doors and threw them open, calling his name, and then dropped to the steps, weeping. Through her tears, she saw a single rose petal on the top step. When she looked down, she saw another and then another. The lower steps were completely covered with the petals. How many days and nights had he waited for her right here? At the bottom of the steps, the petals stretched across the lawn into the back of the castle. The garden! She found the beast lying perfectly still. The rose bushes had been stripped of every single petal. Beauty cradled his massive head in her lap. How very foolish she was. She had found love and not even known it. She placed her hand on his breast and felt a faint heartbeat. The beast opened his eyes and said, "You forgot your promise, Beauty. But I shall die happy since I have the pleasure of seeing you one last time." "No, my dear beast, you shall not die," Beauty said through her tears. "I love you with all my heart. Nothing would please me more than to be your wife and to spend the rest of my life with you." Instantly, the castle radiated with blinding light as if the stars themselves had fallen from the sky. Beauty's hands flew to shield her eyes from the light. When she could finally lift her head, she saw the beast was gone. In his place was a strange but handsome young man. Then she saw herself reflected in eyes she knew so well. "Now you see me as I truly am," he said. "For a long time I was under a spell for being an unkind and arrogant prince. I was only interested in the way people looked on the outside and never thought about who they were on the inside. The spell turned me into the ugliest and most fearsome beast in all the land. It could only be broken when a woman with a true heart could see beyond appearances and come to love me for who I am. You are that woman, Beauty." "I will love you always," whispered Beauty, "no matter how you look." And she held him close. Beauty and the prince were married the next day in the great hall of the castle. The joy and laughter of the guests echoed through the corridors, out the open windows, and all the way down to the magnificent garden. And on the rose bushes, 1,000 new buds reached to greet the sun.